I'm author Mark Muncy,
And I'm author Erika Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers. We are a nightmare November. I don't know why I just did that.
I don't know. That was actually kind of scary to look at.
Yeah.
So it was.
Hey now.
I was like,
Be nice.
you went kind of like, do I need a young priest and an old priest here, or?
I dare you. I dare you. That would indicate I had a soul, and we both know that hasn't happened.
Yeah, that hasn't happened. So
no,
but
no, this is cool. We're in Nightmare November.
Nightmare November, and we've had a couple of events already, and we're rolling right along, and
not as crazy. I have to say, crazier was September, and I think next year is already stacking up.
Yeah, we're getting invited to lots of places. So if you would like us to be at your events next year,
you better email.
Drop us an email now, because we are already filling up for 2024. We even have one 2025.
Oh my gosh,
which is crazy. So
it is crazy. And if there's events that you think we should know about, email us. You can do it on the website, or you can email Mark at eerietravels.com. He would love to receive your emails. And if you want to send him any cool looking pictures, he likes those too.
I love pictures. They're easier to look at than to read. So
and you guys can always check out both on our events page and on our social media. We list our events, so we're going to get better at it, I promise. But you should be able to find out where to come and see us and visit and stuff. So
and then now it's November, and I thought of, there's two very famous UFO incidents that happened in early November.
I thought you were going to talk about turkey dinner and stuff. So I'm actually kind of fine, because I am in my pumpkin spice mode.
Oh, still?
Yes,
okay.
Of course I'm still in pumpkin spice mode.
Yeah.
Spice mode doesn't end.
I've moved into hot chocolate mode, but
you were always in hot chocolate mode.
That's true. I like white chocolate.
But I didn't think you were going to UFOs. So when you said this in your lead-in, I was like, where are we going?
No. I think we had an interview recently with Phyllis. And, that which just aired. And then so that put me in this mindset, and I started remembering, wait a minute, one of the Gulf Breeze incident was November 11th. And then we also have another incident that also happened in November. So I'm going to take you down the Wayback Machine again.
Oh, I have buckled up. Let's go way back.
So,
I thought for a minute there you were going to tell me that you are also reptilian.
No, not this time. Not this time.
Okay.
So,
that has not been
I was told I'm different. I was told I was different.
Oh, that's one word for it.
I was told that I have contact with the Altarians, which is not the reptilians, which is but
the Greys.
I guess.
I feel like we're about to get a bunch of
again. Phyllis did a whole thing on me with being a starseed and all that, so we'll talk about that another time. But I was not getting into that today. So
I feel like that will be a Christmas present. We're gonna have to do that.
We may have to do that one. We may have to do that later this year, but it was pretty excellent. So
okay. So
all right, so we're going down to Florida, back to what we wrote about in our first book, Eerie, Florida.
Eerie, Florida.
Available from fine bookstores.
Okay, stop the shameless self-promotion.
Sorry. All right. Okay. So there was basically a wave. Or a flap, we would call, in the field of alien encounters and a possible alien abduction in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is right outside of Pensacola.
For anyone who doesn't know where the hell that is.
So that's up in the Panhandle.
So that's
almost to Alabama.
I was going to say, isn't that almost?
Yeah, it's right on the corner. So you've got Pensacola, and then literally Alabama is the next stop.
Okay.
And then a little further in is Destin and Fort Walton Beach and all that, which have their own wonderful histories and stuff. But so this was November 11th, 1987.
Okay.
Is when it's at its peak. There'd been a dozen sightings ahead of this.
So in the 80s.
Yeah, so late 80s.
I'm surprised, because I would have thought you were going back to the 50s or 60s.
No, you'd think, right? But no, some people are talking about some of the, this was like the most widely reported UFO sightings of its time.
Okay.
And it's one of those divisive cases. So we're going to go into it with an open mind here, gang. but I have opinions, and I'm sure you're going to have opinions by the end of this. All right. So anyway, let's get to it.
Okay, let's get to it. There's a lot of setup happening.
Right.
Let's go.
So November 11th, 1987, there's a local building contractor, and his name is Ed Walters.
Okay.
And he's working late at his house, and he sees a strange light outside. Now, this has been all over the news of late. People are seeing weird lights in the sky. Now, this is Eglin Air Force Base is right there.
I was about to say one of the largest.
Pensacola Naval Base is right there. This is one of the biggest military areas in America. And so people see weird things a lot. So that's what people have been saying. Oh, you're seeing military operations. You're seeing classified military operations. People are like, it's saucers. We're seeing things that aren't making any sound and all this. But anyway, so Ed's sitting in his house and he sees a strange light, and he goes out to his window to see, what the heck's going on. What he sees is a glowing object hovering in the sky. And though it's kind of blocked by a tree, so he goes outside to get a better view. And as soon as he steps outside, he's described it as what looked like a top, like a spinning top.
Okay.
And with a circle of bright lights underneath it. And then he said what appeared to be like windows or portals beside of it. That was his quote, portals. He quickly rushes inside and gets his Polaroid, right?
Because keep in mind, again, friends who are listening, there was not cell phones at that time. There were not digital cameras at that time. No,
87, you had the little form, maybe you got a Kodak disposable. Most of us had actual cameras, but he had a Polaroid. And he snapped several pictures of this weird thing. And so he steps out into the street to get an even better view. And he's kind of getting closer. He takes a couple more shots. And then basically it sees him. And it comes over to him. And that's when things get crazy.
So okay. All right, hold on. So, we're going to have to pause and go back as we take tours in the way back machine. Erika needs to ask questions.
All right.
So 1987, this gentleman sees this strange object in the sky, goes and gets the camera. I'm fine with that. But then decides it's a good idea to leave his house.
And go further.
Chasing this thing. How big did he say this thing was?
He didn't really describe the size at this point. He's just taking pictures because it's up in the air. He can't quite identify the size. And he gets a little closer. And as he looks up at the craft, this blue beam of light comes out from it and hits him. And he says the force was so strong, it knocked him back a few feet.
Okay.
And then he said that he was unable to move his arms or legs, and he felt like he was being levitated. And he was trying to breathe, according to his quote, trying to breathe, but my chest wouldn't expand with the strength of this beam of light.
That was both pushing on him and levitating him. Okay. Yeah.
So then he hears a voice in his head. We will not harm you. That goes back to our boy, Woody Derenberger.
Woody Derenberger had a very different experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he wasn't hit by that blue beam. And he says, please put me down. Please put me down. Screaming.
He's screaming, but can't breathe.
And then he smells something.
There's some inconsistencies
so far, he smells something, piercing smell, little scent of ammonia mixed with heavy cinnamon. And then he smelled like it was burnt, and he felt it like stuck to the back of his throat.
Okay.
And he started seeing images of dogs in his head.
Okay. Was he drinking before this, or
he was working? He's a building contractor.
That doesn't mean he wasn't drinking.
And he said the pictures were coming to him like somebody turning pages of a book in his mind. And then he kept hearing this humming sound. And then the next thing he remembers is he's waking up on the ground outside his house and nowhere to be seen, the craft, anything. He goes back to his house with this pile of photographs that he's taken. And he didn't say anything for like a week. And then on the afternoon of the 17th of November, he finally is like, I'm going to call the Gulf Breeze Sentinel. And he met with the editor, told him of the weird night 6 weeks ago, and then showed him the pictures.
6 weeks?
6 days ago.
6
days ago. And then he said, though, that he was given the pictures and he was, just helping this anonymous person report it. He didn't tell the newspaper editor it was
him. Okay.
And then eventually days and weeks pass and these things start getting printed and he finally admits it was him. All right. So that's the initial encounter.
Okay. So and no report from neighbors. He was alone by himself. And
there was one neighbor said they heard weird noises.
Okay, but that was it. Nobody else saw the flying, spinny, lighty,
the top
beamy thing. Okay.
Which had not matched the description of any of the other sightings. The other sightings was all saucers, flying saucers and stuff like that.
Well, this is a saucer with the top.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's a pop-up.
So
maybe a navigation.
On the evening of November 20th,
okay,
he suddenly says, "I'm hearing voices in my head." And that hum is back. And so he left what he was doing, which I don't recall what it was. I just remember
it's fine.
Yeah, he basically goes outside and sees a glowing orb descending. And then it hovers in place and lets him take a picture of that. And then several weeks pass again. At about 3:30 a.m. on the 2nd of December, the family's pet dog wakes up screaming.
So wait a minute. He's got a family. And when this happened and he heard, where is the family when he's hearing these voices? The wife
saw some of this, supposedly.
Okay.
Right. So he gets out of bed to figure out what the dog's barking at. And he opens the blinds and he sees this weird figure staring at him outside. About 4 feet tall with a large head and black eyes.
So a gray.
Yeah. And he was so surprised that he fell to the ground and they basically kind of looked and then it just went away. And so he goes after it.
Wait a minute, like walked away? Or?
Yeah, it turns away from the window. And so he finally runs outside to see if he can get a picture of this. And then the blue beam hits him again and paralyzes him. And the creature just disappears. And then once the creature's away, he's able to move. He's got the camera in his hand. So he takes a picture of the object again. And it's now hovering over a field where the blue beam had come down. And he saw another beam come down. And he thinks that beamed up the creature, basically. And then 2 nights pass. And on December 5th, he's dragged from his sleep again with the thing hovering overhead. He's done, right? He's flipping out about all this. So now by this time, he's reported it. It's all over the newspapers. Guess who comes
reporting it?
He keeps reporting every one of these.
Okay.
And he sends in pictures.
Okay.
So MUFON shows up.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, this is the early days of MUFON.
And MUFON is for
the Mutual UFO Network. So they're basically people researching UFOs.
Okay.
And they want to investigate this because, wow, look at these pictures. These pictures are amazing. Mm-hmm. And everything's incredible. And this is probably one of the most incredible cases in modern UFO history, they said. And so they give him special cameras to say, if you see something else, please take pictures. And then they start collecting evidence from the other residents, right? From all the other sightings. One of these even occurred on that way back on November 11th. Several hours earlier, a man named Arthur Herford claimed that he and his wife witnessed the object that looked a lot like the top hovering over the trees in Pensacola.
Okay.
And then again, his account was corroborated by his wife.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now, while MUFON is convinced and everything, a lot of others were not convinced by
Got
this.
it. Okay.
So most of these is the Center for UFO Studies, which is basically the rival to MUFON. They say, oh, this is obviously double exposed pictures and it's probably some sort of toy because.
Oh, I'm seeing pictures of it.
Yeah. Right. But where the UFO is blurry, but everything else is in focus. Yeah, that's it. Those are the sightings. So you're like,
I have many thoughts on this right now that I'm looking at it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, but they do have somebody else corroborated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, his wife is, and then these other sightings are also corroborating.
Okay.
So now, even those who did not accuse Walters of a hoax are also still not 100% on his side, right? So there was a photo expert from NASA. I think his name is Dr. Nathan. And he was asked by the National Enquirer, of all things, to determine, is this real? Because we want to run a story on it.
Okay.
Which, wait
a minute.
Yes.
The Enquirer was finding out if something was real?
Exactly.
They were doing fact checking?
Yeah.
That sounds preposterous.
Yeah. And now he even said his findings were inconclusive because he couldn't prove if they were or not. Now, what happened is a lot of people start coming out and going, well, Walters is doing this for the money.
Is he getting money for this?
Well, he says no. But now history, we know, yes, he was. He had been paid a fee to give like a 6-figure advance for a book on UFOs Proof Positive by Dr. Bruce Maccabee because he wanted to analyze the photos and stuff like that. So now his wife is standing by him during all this. And he also passes 2 polygraph tests. And more bizarre objects are seen around the region, right? This is still, and Walters records even more stuff, right? And he's getting accounts from others now. People are coming to him to describe their encounters, and he's reporting those. So he's become a middleman.
Okay.
So he basically is becoming a celebrity, right, in Florida. And in addition to that book deal, we found out he also got a television company and a movie company wants to do
the stories.
And the stories. So he moved out of his house, and he says it's because UFO enthusiasts are knocking on his door all day and night. And the property basically is empty for like a year because nobody wants to move there because it's the house where the UFO people come and knock on your door. So a guy comes in and buys it, and basically he discovers the problem. And we will come back to that.
What? You're just going to leave me hanging?
Yep. Through this commercial break.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
Eerie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky. Horrible occurrences, almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more. And we're back.
Okay, so
you saw the pictures.
I saw the pictures. So listeners, obviously not while driving, but if you get a chance, you should. And we'll put a couple links.
We'll put a link.
We'll put some links for these images because I'm going to reserve my thought till you tell me, unless you want to ask me what I presently think, but you can either that or tell me what's going to happen because.
All right. So go ahead and just, what's your initial response looking at those pictures?
No freaking way.
Right.
No way.
All right.
Like but I think my initial thought comes from the fact
1987.
It's 1987, but I mean,
it's a Polaroid camera. It's not high D.
True, but I think it's more, you've introduced me to a ton of UFO stuff. I have my own UFO stuff that we're going to talk about our own personal UFO stuff on a later episode, but like it looks like now I would say it looks like a very fancy light
like
cover.
A Chinese lantern.
Yeah, or something like that. Like I just go, this is the exact opposite of way any UFOs. And on top of it, just from a aerodynamic standpoint, like all the UFOs you hear about, right, have a degree of aerodynamics that go with them. Like you can tell whether it's an aerocraft or a saucer, like they're meant to fly through space. I look at this thing and I'm like, that's meant to be in the Macy's Day Parade.
Yeah. So,
like,
all right. So
tell me,
our boy Robert Mentzer has bought the house.
Okay.
After a year, and he's lived in the house for a little while, and he wants to install an ice maker in his fridge. So he has to go up in the attic and dig through the insulation. And when he does, he finds something. And what he discovers...
It's Florida, so it's rats.
Yeah, no. Something that Walters had left that he had forgotten about up there, buried under the insulation. And it is the model.
No,
it
he
is
left it in the attic
of the house. It's 2 foam plates with 2 slightly smaller foam plates with paper rings in between them onto which windows had been drawn. And now what was worst about this, what makes it so much more damning, the paper that it's drawn on, remember he was a housing builder and stuff like that? It's got his handwriting on the inside with designs for another house that he made this whole thing out of.
I don't know how that's worse than stupidly leaving the evidence behind in your attic. You would think out of all the things you would take out of that house, you might want to take the UFO that's been invading your life.
So Walter's quote, when this comes out in the paper, is this is only a fool would leave behind such a piece of evidence. And that the model had clearly been planted to discredit both him and the other many sightings that he and others have experienced. Now, he elaborated that the house sale records and things that his papers were related to a sale that fell through 2 years after his initial sighting in 1987. And he said that people often found stuff searching in his trash, and someone must have retrieved the paperwork from there to do this. And now when they did go through that paperwork, it was from 1989, which was 2 years after the sighting. So he also went on more defensive and said, look, the model is nothing like what I took a picture of.
So do we now think the guy who bought the house built this model to say that he debunked it?
So people are thinking.
Okay.
So
this is a journey.
So 1990, another article appears, and this is a boy named Tom Smith, who was a teenager at the time, said he was the one who helped take the pictures and he was the one who helped build the model. And
so now another person comes
come out damning him.
And then what does he say? That he doesn't even know Tom Smith?
Yeah, and that he actually had used a trampoline to jump up and down on over and over again to flatten the grass and the vegetation to make the imprint for where the craft would have crashed.
That doesn't make sense. No, that's not how trampolines work.
Yeah. And he thought it was just to take a joke, and he didn't want to get caught in the fraud. So that's why he's finally coming out.
Oh, okay.
So now Walter says this is all just to discredit him, and that Tom Smith's lying. While this other stuff is all lying. Basically, it winds up being 2 distinct camps. MUFON that believes and MUFON that doesn't believe. And they split. Literally.
Wow.
Split. Now, what is interesting is the landing spot that he described, and where that guy said he just jumped up and down a trampoline. There was a lack of growth in a perfect circle for 18 months with no signs of any chemicals or anything to do it. He said that the blue beam effect was that he peeled the back of the Polaroid a little bit just to allow enough light to through, but none of the photos had that, ever exposed. So
somebody's claiming it's a hoax by saying they did something that couldn't have caused what the end result. Okay. So this is fun. So we have opposing MUFONs.
Yeah. And and then Smith tried to take a few, he said he had learned the double exposure techniques from Walters, the kid. And so he took a few photos. These were obviously fakes versus Walters, which could not be
proven or disproven. Okay.
So it's really interesting. And so Walter still speaks on this subject. He still says that he's been framed, that the FBI did this.
Why does he say the FBI did this? What is his reasoning?
He says that they came into his house at one point. His wife let them into the house, and that they apparently went up into his attic at one point and then left for no reason. So that's when they planted the evidence.
Why would the FBI, out of all the governmental agencies, be the one to try to discredit this human?
That's the question. So that's what really makes Gulf Breeze so interesting, is that a lot of this stuff, you can make an argument on either side. Personally, I think he set it up. I think they're fake because when we later on, he was asked to take more pictures with his original camera, and he did. And those pictures are online. Just, with a couple couples that believed him and stuff like that. And if you take just simple editing software and go into those pictures and brighten them and brighten them and brighten them and brighten them, you see the model, like a double exposure.
Wow.
So I think, yes, he did. Did he see some weird stuff? And he's doing like our Ghost Watch girls, where I've got to prove that I'm not crazy. So here I'm making these pictures to show I'm not crazy. That's possible too. But
come forward and say they actually saw exactly what he's saying, or they got blue beamed or anything?
Nobody else says anything like that. Now Gulf Breeze, I have tons of evidence of people who have seen weird things and described them. And there's been some pictures, but most of them are like black triangles or the disc or silver shape, nothing like these tops. So that's why I'm like, it doesn't click.
That's so bizarre.
So,
but he has a book.
He has a book. It's called The Gulf Breeze UFOs, or the UFOs of Gulf Breeze. I have a copy at home. I have a first edition, because I collect weird things like that.
Did you read it though?
I've read it, and it's some of his, encounters with the aliens and some of their devices that they wear, spacesuits and things like that are interesting. So it's So
what's interesting to me though about this conversation with you is you are very much a believer in what Indrid Cole experienced, right?
I think, he saw something he didn't understand. I think what Woody Derenberger experienced with Indrid
That's
Cole.
what I meant. Yeah, Indrid Cole, the Woody Derenberg. Why are you more reticent to think that this is not
that picture when we did the light editing on it, that was in the early 90s, and I pulled that picture. It was got early internet days, 97, 98 or something, and we did early light testing on those images, and it came up. I was like, there's the freaking craft. It's a double exposure. It's literally a double exposure. And so that's why I'm like, I think he's a fraud, which is sad because I want it to be real.
Wow.
I want to believe. So now let's go to
so
another November sighting.
Yeah. So in November
but we're going to go forward in the Wayback Machine this time. So we're going to November 7th, 2006.
Oh my gosh, there are cell phone cameras then.
4:15 p.m. and not in Gulf Breeze near an Air Force base, not in the middle of nowhere, rambunctious, mountains or mountain town or anything like that. Nope. Chicago. O'Hare International Airport.
Wow.
One of the busiest airports in the world. Sudden UFO sighting.
What?
Yeah. And the FAA refuses to investigate it because this UFO was not seen on radar. So obviously it was just weather.
Okay, so explain what happened.
Okay. Around 4:15 Central Standard Time.
That's 5:15 Eastern for anybody paying attention.
Right. Yep. So Chicago O'Hare International Airport gets a report that 12 employees from United Airlines were witnessing a metallic saucer-shaped craft hovering over gate C-17 to the point where they were like, it's not making any noise. It's hovering there. They were actually this ramp was pushing back another flight, which was flight 446 that was departing Chicago for Charlotte, North Carolina. And the employee says, hey, there's something above your airplane. And the pilot and mechanics see it. And they go, what the hell is this? It is definitely, quote, not a cloud. This is something weird. It's metallic. So they call air traffic control. Now, air traffic control says, nothing on radar. Don't know what you're talking about.
Does anybody get a picture of it?
A few. And it's 6 to 24 feet in diameter.
Wow.
Dark gray in color. Several other independent witnesses outside the airport also see it. One described it as just this crazy object. That's what he says, literally.
Wow.
A crazy object flying over this plane on the ground. Now, it takes off at a super high speed just as they're starting to get into position to do more studies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you got the picture of it, right?
I got the pic. Now that looks like a UFO.
Right? It's something.
Yeah, that is definitely, and it's weird, and it's got a bunch of different pictures of it.
Yeah, a lot of people took pictures of it because, hey, cell phones were a thing. Everybody's like, oh, there's no, it's all blurry photographs and all this. Well, it's 2006, so it ain't the greatest, but.
And it's also from a huge distance, but you can absolutely see it.
It looks interesting. And the fact that people are taking pictures of it, so many different people are taking pictures of it, it obviously is not just a cloud. And now when it takes off, it punches a hole through the clouds above it so fast.
Oh, wow.
That it literally opens a hole in the sky.
Wow.
Now, so according to the Chicago Tribune, they did this wonderful article on it, and it was the disc was visible for 5 minutes, was seen close to by dozens of people, ranging from pilots to supervisors, and also they'd all heard chatter on their radio about this. Oh my God, Charlie, you got to see this. And everybody runs out to see what the hell's going on. So the FAA said, we don't have any information on this. Don't know what you're talking about. Never happened. And so the Chicago Tribune files a Freedom of Information Act. We love that. And the FAA ordered an internal review of the air traffic communication tapes. And they do get a call from United Airlines supervisor to the FAA saying, what the hell is this? And the FAA says it's a weather phenomenon because there's nothing on the radar, so we are not investigating this incident.
Wow.
And now the weather conditions that day, according to one astronomer, says that it could have been a hole punch cloud.
What is a hole punch cloud?
That's a very unusual weather phenomenon. I'm glad you asked because I pulled that up. This is from our wonderful friends at Wikipedia. It's also known as a fall streak hole. And a fall streak hole, also known as a kevum or a hole punch cloud or punch hole cloud or sky punch, is a large gap, usually circular or elliptical, that can appear in cirrocumulus or altocumulus clouds. They're basically caused by super cold water in the clouds suddenly evaporating or freezing. And it's usually triggered by passing aircraft. So
wow.
Because they're usual appearance, they are frequently mistaken for UFOs.
That's interesting, but it doesn't sound like that's what this was. So
And so now the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena, which is NARCAP. I love that one.
Oh, wow.
They published a 155-page report on this sighting and called for a government inquiry and improved energy sensing technologies. Because anytime an airborne object can hover for several minutes over a busy airport and not be registered on radar or even seen visually from the control tower, that's a threat.
That is a huge threat.
That is a huge threat. So,
do they do anything about this?
That's the last report, and no one's done anything since.
So, question for you.
Yes.
This one sounds real.
Yes.
You think this one's real?
I'm 100% positive this is the sighting that we all wanted. The sighting that we all needed, and it was in 2006.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not like an older double exposure, because you can tell that these pictures are taken. If you we'll include a couple of them, but you can tell they're taken from cell phones at that time. There wasn't the Zoom technology everybody has now.
No,
and they're grainy because they were grainy back then when you went that far out trying to get a picture.
Yeah, exactly. I have trouble trying to take a picture nowadays with my 26 megapixel phone. I sometimes get some blurry photos and stuff if I'm zooming in too far and stuff like that, but that's also because of my epilepsy. But
I would have been freaked the hell. I would have been like, get me off this plane,
right? That dude's not real.
Yeah.
All over again. But That thing isn't, what is that? I don't want to be on this plane. I don't want anything to do with this. And the fact that the government just immediately is like, nope, not interested because it didn't detect on radar. A lot of things don't detect on radar, including some of our own aircraft that we designed specifically not to detect on radar.
Well, I also think if I'm flying in from another galaxy, I probably have my shit together that I'm not being detected on radar.
Yeah. The fact that he's hanging out over Chicago O'Hare, it's a little weird. I don't understand the meaning of it. I don't understand,
of course not, because we're not aliens. We have no idea what they're here for.
Now, this one has been referred to on a lot of pop culture stuff. Even Boston Legal did a thing on it. And then History Channel, of course, has done a couple specials on it. I think it was on Ancient Aliens. It's not nearly as reported as I feel it should be. I mean, people talk Phoenix Lights. Why don't we talk about the O'Hare incident?
Well, the government doesn't want us talking about
exactly. And this was, like I said, this is the one that makes me go, hang on a sec. Something happened, and we need to investigate this. And we need to know how it got in, how it did this. One person said it just kind of warped out, or just kind of blinked out of existence. But then the other person, several other witnesses said it took off through the air and left that hole in the sky. Now, again, those holes in the skies are from planes usually, or something passing through, and they cause those little ice crystals to make those little holes and stuff. It's basically because something makes the crystals form. So that meant something did pass through. It doesn't. That's not an atmospheric phenomenon.
No, it sounds very, very real. So I like that we ended on the very real one
instead of the guy who had a model in his attic and.
Well, see, that a model in the attic, if that was disproven, but it sounds like something.
I think he built a second model later using the later paper. I think the original was still, he made something and then he had to do it again later when he had to reinvent it and retake some photos.
Well, you're just if you leave it in your attic.
I think he left it in his attic, and I think that was a mistake. And the kid coming out saying he helped, I think that was just a kid saying that,
just getting notoriety.
I think he was the one who was lying, but that doesn't make the other guy suddenly free and clear, right?
Yeah.
So there was more to this story than meets the eye. So.
No, that's weird. But travelers, why don't you tell us what you think?
Yeah.
And tell us about your UFO stories. We'd love to hear them.
Those are some of my favorite stories. And I had several from Pensacola from people who saw USOs, unidentified submerged objects, that things were flying underwater basically, and then would come out of the water and still not make a sound, hover over their boats and then take off. And like I said, and I still get a bunch of emails from Pensacola area of people seeing weird things. Now, another famous incident was people reported seeing 8 military helicopters from Eglin chasing a flying saucer, and they all reported it all over the press, all over the news. And then Eglin says, nope, don't know what you're talking about. Didn't happen.
That training exercise.
Exercise. Helicopters. And it happens. And when you're up there, we were at Gulf Breeze. Carrie and I were doing photos for Eerie Travels, where on the southbound lane, where the original, that is your travel destination, gang, for Gulf Breeze. You can go to Southbound Drive, and that is where Ed Walters said he saw his UFOs. And if you're flying in, fly in from Chicago. And
find somebody flying you in.
Yeah, go out of O'Hare and you can see that. But if you go to that location, we went there, and as we were driving back from there, several black helicopters were scrambled nearby and flew past us.
Well, and on the way to somewhere. A military base, you're going to have that. Now, whether or not anybody saw them chasing something, we already know that even with the congressional committees, there's so much stuff where the government's like, don't talk about that.
Yeah.
So we're still on the cusp of learning what we're going to learn, probably sooner rather than later. But this was a fascinating little journey.
I thought you'd enjoy this one.
I did.
And we want to believe, and so with that, gang, please check us out on EerieTravels.com. Drop us a line. Again, you can mail them to mark@EerieTravels.com, and I'll get it directly. You can also please go to Paranormality Magazine and vote for us in the top 10 podcasts. And we're just continuing Nightmare November. We've got a lot of cryptids coming up. We got a lot of spooky things coming up. And gang, keep watching the skies. We want to believe too. And we will see you on the other side.